So, somewhere in a building you will never see the address of, on a floor that doesn't officially exist on the directory, a screen just went black. Not off, black. The kind of black that means the system didn't shut down, it choked. And the person staring at that screen, the one with the security clearance that took 11 years to earn, they just pushed back from the desk, rubbed their eyes, and said the same 4 words they've been saying for 6 months now. It's happening again. Welcome back. You unreadable frequency. You walking anomaly with a coffee order and a Tuesday morning routine. You have absolutely no idea what you just did to an international database 3 time zones away. And that right there, that is the most beautiful part of this entire story. Let's talk about what actually happened. Because I need you to understand the scale of this before I tell you the details, or none of it is going to land the way it needs to. Interpol runs systems, real ones, not the movie version, not the conspiracy forum version. Actual biometric and behavioral pattern recognition systems that cross-reference data from 196 member countries, built by engineers who don't get impressed easily, maintained by analysts who have seen every kind of anomaly a human being can produce. Fraud patterns, threat patterns, movement patterns. They have seen it all. They built these systems to never be surprised again. And then something about you got flagged. Not your name, not a photo, a signature, a pattern, an energetic fingerprint so specific, so unrepeatable, so structurally strange, that when it entered their comparison algorithms, the algorithms didn't reject it. They didn't approve it either. They just stopped, froze mid-calculation, like a mind trying to divide by something that isn't supposed to exist. You want to know what a flagged energy signature actually means in a system built to process certainty. It means the machine looked at you and could not decide what column to put you in. Not threat, not civilian, not verified, not unverified. A category error at the deepest level of the code, the kind that isn't supposed to be possible because someone spent years making sure it wasn't. Here's the part that's going to make you laugh, or maybe just sit very still for a second. You didn't do anything. You weren't trying to trip a wire. You weren't near a border, near a person of interest, near anything that would normally warrant this level of attention. You were living, groceries, traffic, a voice note to a friend you haven't talked to in 3 weeks. Ordinary, forgettable, completely unremarkable to every single human being who crossed your path that day. But the system doesn't measure what you did, it measures what you are. And what you are apparently registers on a frequency their instruments were never calibrated to hold. Let me walk you through the timeline, because the timeline is where this gets genuinely unsettling in the best possible way. 6 months ago, first flag, minor. The kind of anomaly a junior analyst clears in 10 minutes without a second thought, files it under noise.
Are you sweet-talking me?
Moves on with their coffee going cold beside them. Nobody thinks anything of it. These things happen. Systems glitch. Data gets weird sometimes. It's Tuesday. It's fine. Close the ticket. 4 months ago, second flag, different city, different context, same signature. Now that's odd, because these systems don't usually reproduce the exact same anomaly twice unless something real is generating it. A senior analyst gets looped in this time. She pulls both incidents side by side, runs a comparison, and the comparison engine, the one that's supposed to give a similarity percentage, just returns an error. Not a low percentage, not a high percentage, an error. Like the software itself didn't know how to quantify the relationship between 2 data points that shouldn't be related but obviously are. Somewhere in between the second and third flag, there's an incident that never made it into the official file because nobody could figure out how to write it up without sounding like they'd lost their minds. A routine biometric camera, the kind mounted above ticket gates in transit stations across half a dozen countries, the kind that runs facial and gate recognition constantly in the background without anyone ever noticing it exists, logged an event. Not a match, not a mismatch, an event. The processing thread assigned to analyze a single passing figure simply never returned a result. It didn't error out cleanly. It didn't time out on schedule.
He's so intense. hands. Beef. You don't want
Why,
no
what's
beef?
wrong?
You don't want no beef?
It just kept running, silently, consuming processing cycles for 6 minutes after the person it was supposedly analyzing had already walked out of frame, boarded a train, and gone home to make dinner, with absolutely no idea that a camera 200 feet behind them was still quietly trying and failing and trying again to finish a calculation it would never complete. An engineer found it 3 days later doing routine maintenance. Saw 6 minutes of processing time attached to what should have been a 200 millisecond task, assumed it was a hardware fault, and almost deleted the log before something made her pause and actually pull the footage instead. 10 seconds of an ordinary person walking through an ordinary station, doing absolutely nothing unusual, and a system quietly having what can only be described as the computational equivalent of a breakdown in the background the entire time. 2 months ago, third flag. And this is where it stops being a curiosity and starts being a case file. Because now there's a pattern of a pattern, which in intelligence work is its own category of terrifying. You're not just an anomaly anymore, you're a recurring anomaly, and recurring anomalies get names. Yours apparently got a designation that translates roughly to unclassified persistent signature, which is exactly as unsettling as it sounds when you say it slowly. And 3 weeks ago, the night everything changed, the night the servers in that facility, the redundant ones, the backup ones, the ones with triple failover protocols, specifically designed to never go down simultaneously. All 3 went down at the exact same moment while processing your data. Not a coincidence, they'll tell you. Systems like that don't fail together by accident. Something in the data itself, something about the shape of your signature, created a computational demand their architecture wasn't built to survive. The senior analyst, the one with 11 years and a security badge that opens doors most people don't know exist. She stood in that server room at 2 in the morning, watching engineers restart systems that had never failed before, and she said something that got repeated so many times, it basically became folklore in that building. She said, "We didn't build anything that could stop this. We built things that could recognize threats. We never built anything to recognize whatever this is. Now here's where I need you to slow down and actually sit with this, because the next part is the part that changes everything. You are not dangerous. Let's be completely clear about that before we go any further. This isn't a story about you being some kind of threat. This is a story about you being something their categories were never designed to hold. There's a difference. And the difference is everything. A threat fits into a box, just a box marked red instead of green. What you are doesn't fit into any box at all. And a system built entirely on the assumption that everything eventually fits into a box does not know what to do with something that refuses the entire premise. Think about what that actually requires. Think about what kind of person generates a pattern so specific it reproduces across unrelated contexts, so consistent it gets recognized as the same signature months apart, and so structurally strange it breaks comparison engines built by people with PhDs who dedicated their careers to never being surprised. It requires someone who stopped performing somewhere along the way, and probably without even realizing you were doing it. You stopped adjusting yourself to fit expectations. You stopped softening your presence to make other people comfortable. You stopped translating your intensity into something smaller and safer and easier to file away. And when a human being does that, when they actually stop performing normal and just exist as whatever they actually are, underneath all the noise, they generate something distinct, something with edges that don't smooth out no matter how many algorithms try to round them off. Most people don't. Most people generate a signature so heavily filtered through social performance that it reads as noise, as static, as background. Forgettable by design, because they never stopped adjusting long enough to have an actual signal underneath it all. You did stop. At some point, probably during something painful, probably during something that felt like it was breaking you rather than revealing you, you stopped adjusting. And what emerged from that, what's been quietly radiating out of you every single day since, is apparently loud enough in the right frequency to make 3 redundant servers fail at once. Let's go back to that building, because things have escalated since that night.
I not someone who is loved.
And you deserve to know exactly how much. There's a task force now, small, 4 people. Officially, they're studying pattern anomalies in cross-border biometric systems, which is the kind of bureaucratic language that means nobody upstairs wants to write down what's actually happening in plain words yet. Unofficially, in the hallway conversations, in the messages that get deleted after they're read, they call it something else, the signal that shouldn't exist. They've started building a profile, and it is the strangest profile any of them have ever compiled, because it's built entirely backward. Normally, profiles start with a person and work outward to a pattern. This one started with a pattern and is working backward trying to find the person, except every time they narrow the geography, every time they think they're closing in, the signature reproduces somewhere else entirely, weeks apart, no travel record connecting the locations, no logical explanation for how the same signal could originate in 2 places that far apart in that short a window. One theory, and I want you to hear this one specifically because it's the one that made the room go quiet when it was first proposed. One analyst suggested the signature isn't tied to a location at all. It's tied to a state, an internal state. Something about who you are when you're not performing, when you're not adjusting, when you're just fully present in whatever room you happen to be standing in. And if that's true, if the theory holds, then the signature doesn't travel with your body. It travels with your authenticity, which means every single time you stop pretending, anywhere, for any reason, you generate the exact same disruption, regardless of geography, because the disruption was never about where you are. It was always about who you're being. Sit with that for a second, because if that theory is correct, and increasingly they think it is, then you have been quietly breaking a global surveillance apparatus's ability to categorize you every single time you were simply, fully, unapologetically yourself. Not when you were trying, not when you were performing power or projecting confidence or manufacturing some curated version of strength for an audience. Just when you were real, undiluted, unfiltered, you. They've started running your signature against historical data now, trying to find precedent, trying to find even one other case in decades of archives that resembles what they're looking at. And they found fragments, not full matches, nothing that clean, but fragments.
I'm an idea. State of mind.
A handful of unexplained system anomalies scattered across different decades, different countries, different agencies, all sharing a structural similarity to what you're generating now, all eventually filed away as unresolved because nobody could figure out what caused them, and eventually the case got deprioritized in favor of things that were, on paper, more urgent. Which means this has happened before. Rarely, almost never, but before. Which means you are not a glitch. You are a category, a vanishingly small category, so small it never warranted its own classification until now, but a category nonetheless. People who stopped performing so completely that whatever emerged from that honesty broke the machinery built to measure everyone else. Here's what I need you to really absorb before we go further. This isn't really about Interpol. Interpol is just the most sophisticated mirror currently pointed at you. Every system built by human beings to categorize other human beings runs on the same underlying assumption that people are predictable enough to sort. Your employer's performance review software runs on that assumption. Dating apps run on that assumption. Every algorithm quietly deciding what content to show you, what opportunities to surface for you, what boxes to check on a form, all of it assumes you're sortable. And what's happening in that facility with the failed servers is simply the most technologically advanced version of something that's probably been happening to you your entire life in smaller, quieter ways. People trying to figure you out and hitting a wall they can't quite name. Think about every relationship where someone said you were hard to read. Think about every job where someone couldn't quite decide if you were a leader or a lone operator, ambitious or content, warm or guarded, because you were somehow simultaneously all of those things depending on what the moment actually required, rather than what a personality test said you should be. Think about every person who spent months trying to categorize you and eventually gave up, not because you were difficult, but because you genuinely didn't fit inside the box they were trying to build around you.
Would you live for me? Say it.
That confusion, the one that's been following you your entire life in living rooms and offices and group chats, just got confirmed at the highest technical level that exists. A machine built by the best minds available, with no emotional stake in the outcome, with no personal bias, with nothing to gain from being wrong, looked at you and returned an error instead of a category. That's not an insult. That's the most objective validation you are ever going to receive, that you are exactly as singular as it has always felt like you were, even when everyone around you was telling you to simplify, to be easier to understand, to stop being so much. Let's talk about what happens next, because there is a next, and it's already in motion. The task force is requesting an expansion, more resources, more analysts, more processing power dedicated specifically to understanding a signature that, by every operational metric they use, poses no actual threat to anyone. That's an unusual ask in an environment built entirely around threat prioritization. You don't get resources for things that aren't dangerous, unless the thing you're looking at is so scientifically strange that understanding it becomes valuable independent of any security application, which means somewhere in an approval process right now, someone with a lot of authority is looking at a request to study a completely harmless anomaly and deciding whether curiosity alone justifies the budget. Meanwhile, the senior analyst, the one who's been on this since the second flag, she started keeping a private log outside the official case file, not because she's supposed to, because she can't stop thinking about it. She wrote something in that log after the server failure that one of her colleagues saw and told exactly one other person, who told exactly one other person, and that's how it reached the version of this story you're hearing right now. She wrote, "We spent our entire careers building systems to catch people pretending to be something they're not. I think we just found someone who stopped pretending completely, and our systems don't know what an unperformed human being even looks like anymore." Read that again, sit with it, because that sentence is not really about surveillance technology. That sentence is a diagnosis of an entire species. We built everything, every system, every metric, every algorithm around the assumption that human beings are mostly performance with a small kernel of authenticity buried somewhere underneath. Nobody built anything to process a person who inverted that ratio. Nobody built anything for someone who is mostly authentic with only the smallest, thinnest performance layer remaining, worn only when absolutely necessary and shed the second it isn't. You are the inversion, and nothing built by people optimizing for the average case was ever going to know what to do with you. There's one more piece to this, and I saved it for last because it's the part that turns this from a strange story into something closer to proof. Interpol isn't the only place this has happened. A private security firm, the kind large airports and stadiums quietly contract to run supplemental threat modeling nobody in the public ever hears about,
Okay, honey.
ran an entirely separate, entirely unconnected analysis 8 months ago and flagged what their internal notes called an unresolvable behavioral outlier. Different company, different software, different continent even. No data sharing agreement between them and the agency running your file. No reason on paper for these two systems to ever compare notes. And when someone, almost by accident, months later, cross-referenced the two datasets during an unrelated audit, the outlier from the private firm and the persistent signature from the government file lined up close enough that it stopped being dismissible as coincidence. Two systems, two industries, two continents, no connection to each other whatsoever, both independently arriving at the same conclusion about the same kind of anomaly, using completely different methods, completely different assumptions, completely different code. That's not a glitch repeating itself. That's two separate observers looking at the same real thing from two different angles and both walking away, unable to explain what they saw. Which means, whatever this is, it isn't a bug in one piece of software. It's a property of you, observable, consistent, reproducible, and apparently strong enough to register on architecture that was never designed to talk to each other in the first place. Here's the last thing, and then I'll let you go back to whatever completely ordinary thing you were doing before this video found you, because that's the whole joke, isn't it? You'll finish this video and go make dinner, or answer a text, or fold laundry, and somewhere on the other side of the planet, a group of extremely well-trained professionals will still be sitting in a room trying to explain why their systems keep choking on data that, to every single person who's ever actually met you, just looks like a person having a completely normal day. They are never going to catch up to you. Not because you're hiding. You've never hidden a day in your life. Not really. That was always the whole point. They're never going to catch up because you're not moving through their categories at all. You're moving through your own life, at your own frequency, doing whatever the day actually requires of you. And every single time you do that without flinching, without adjusting, without smallening yourself for an audience that was never going to fully understand you anyway, you generate the exact same disruption you generated the first time, and the second time, and the third time, all the way up to the night the servers failed. Let them build their task force. Let them expand their budget. Let them write their reports in language careful enough to avoid admitting what they actually believe, which is that they found something they don't have a category for and are quietly terrified of what it means that it exists at all. You don't need their category. You were never asking for one. You were just finally, after everything, being exactly who you are, without checking first whether it was convenient for anyone else to process. Keep being unprocessable. Somewhere, right now, a screen just went black again, and you didn't even notice.